Abey, thank you so much for joining us today. We wanted to talk a little bit about you, start there and tell a little bit about your journey. Where were you born? What was your childhood like?
I grew up in Mabopane. My parents owned a shop, so I've always grown up in an environment where there was lots of different people coming in and we were selling stuff all the time. That's where I think I got a bit of my passion around getting involved in selling and marketing and experiences.
Well, what happened in life that you found yourself in marketing?
When I was growing up, my parents wanted us to actually get involved in the business. So we had to work. So I was packing bread at 5. I was on the till from about 9 years old. So like my arithmetic is really good because we actually before those days there was no barcode scanners. Yeah. You had to do everything kind of manually. So I was fascinated with why people chose different products. I mean, as a kid, I was like, okay, so why do you prefer that brand over that brand? As little experiments, my sister and I used to put these boards together and make our own little billboards in the store and see if those could get people to buy things that they normally wouldn't buy. And it was just for fun. I didn't realize then that it was actually what marketing was about,
Yeah. And
That's
you cut your teeth into advertising and marketing at SAB. And it was quite a time to be there. I mean, I must say, being in this industry for the last 20 years, there's quite a few marketers that came out of your generation. What was your time like there?
Yeah, I had an amazing time. It was a time, I think, where the marketing landscape, especially in kind of beverage advertising, we had a lot of money, because everyone had a lot of money back then. And there wasn't as much scrutiny around procurement and what you could and what you couldn't do. And my first job was running a program called Castle Loud, which was a kind of a legal adult drinking platform for Castle Lager. And we had a TV show. Those of you that are old enough will remember a show called Studio Mix. So Studio Mix, we took over Studio Mix, and it was called Castle Loud. And we had 3 syndicated radio shows on YFM, Metro, and on Good Hope FM. And we had events. And we had a website. We're kind of one of the first brands to have websites back then. There was no social media, and it was really a platform. And that's where I got to really be interested in kind of multi-platform engagement. So I love that. Yeah, and then obviously we introduced Miller Genuine Draft at that stage. And I mean,
Miller time.
It was Miller time. And then back then, all alcohol advertising really was kind of quite hedonistic. You had a lot of beer advertising that was based on the barley and the hops and the heritage of the products. And when Miller came about, we had no history. We were born in 1986. So it was really one of the first times that you saw women and men drinking and partying together. And that was, nobody knew what that stuff, no one knew about kind of events, no one knew who the DJs were, so I had free reign. And we blew 90% of the marketing budget in the launch.
Which was worth it.
But it was absolutely worth it because, it kind of got the brand off to a really cool start. So It was amazing. It wasn't even a job. I mean, I never considered it a job. It was just fun.
And then you went on to the world of advertising. So you left corporate and then went to 2 agencies. And I understand the VWV in terms of experiential and activation.
So I went to VWV for an audition, and it turned out that I was a promoter. It was a promoter. It wasn't a BMW ad. It was an audition to be like one of those people that hand out balloons at BMW dealerships. Be that as it may, I did that pretty well. Apparently, I hand out balloons really well. And the sales director, Terry Sutherland, just got me in. And I used to, after varsity, go to VWV to work on some marketing stuff. And that's when I think I really appreciated that part of my experience growing up because I realized that marketing was so much more than advertising. Now, that's obvious today, but if you go back 15 years, 20 years, it wasn't the case. Marketing equaled advertising back then. So VWV forced me to understand digital, websites, online, experiential marketing. So from there, I went to SAB, and I came back as a shareholder in the business. We bought a stake with 2 partners in the business. And that was also just like a really amazing time. Candice, who's here, Sonia were also at VWV at around the time, and that's when we ran the business. It kind of became a success, and we produce the opening and closing ceremonies of the World Cup.
I remember.
That's where I lost my hair.
Amazing. Oh, never came back. Right.
But it was worth it. And so, yeah, and you know, after that, I really didn't think I could do anything else. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then Nunu, who's now running Facebook, called me up, and I knew it was going to be some sort of job offer, because you get those calls, like, let's meet for lunch. I was like, she was my mentor, so we'd done it before, but there was a different tone. And she offered me her job. I mean, it's like, you know, I thought that she was going to get me to like run one of the divisions, and she said, like, I think you should be the CEO. And, you know, I'd grown up my whole life kind of being anti-advertising. I was always the alternative, and I had an opportunity to transform what was the gold standard of advertising in those ages into being a really transformational agency of the future. And that was like, you know, you can't say no to an assignment like that. The Ogilvy brand around the world is really based on a solid foundation of David Ogilvy's philosophy. And I think that gave the agency a really strong focus and an anchor. We weren't always trying to hook onto something that was new and that was fresh. We were always bound to the idea that actually the only way you're going to make a difference and sell a product is by engaging with the hearts and minds of a customer and translating what the benefits of those products are in a way that they understand it. And I think that's always stood that agency in really good stead. All we had to do was transform how it applied itself. And we did something quite differently with regards to the digital transformation of the business. The fad back in those days was to buy a digital agency and leave it as a standalone and have a digital division. Specialist. And what we took a different route. We bought into Glue and we merged it inside the business. So the digital transformation of the business actually happened from the inside out. I always used to say to our people at Ogilvy that we didn't want to be a digital agency. We wanted to be an agency that was digital. You know, digital is just going to be another medium. Yeah. And it's just going to be a way of doing things. It's not necessarily something that has to be the sole focus of the business. It just happens to be a channel of communication and a channel of transaction. So that was cool. And obviously, being the CEO back then, we had to drive transformation.
And how do you think transformation's going in the marketing industry, in advertising?
I think it's slower than it should be, but I think that we are making progress. I mean, when I was running Ogilvy, I always used to get criticized for the lack of transformation within the business, because, you know, at that stage, our management team was probably still only 40% black. We, at the beginning of my tenure, were a level 3 contributor. And of course, we hadn't passed the threshold of being a 50.1% black-owned agency. And my whole point was, this business has done more to empower and create wealth for black professionals than an agency that's 100% black-owned. For me, it's not just about race. I think it's also kind of gender equality in that environment. Yeah. Like my team right now I think it's like 90% women.
I was going to ask you.
I have no doubt that women are more intuitive and empathetic than men are. And it should be standard that you should be over-indexed with having women in your team if you're going to be serious about engaging customers and consumers. Yeah. So.
And women in leadership roles. Do you have women in leadership roles?
So the way that my structure works, I've got executive heads of departments, of sponsorship, of brand, of retail, of digital, and of strategy and media, and they're all women.
Fabulous. Amazing. Should we give him a round?
Yeah.
Abey, in terms of we'll go back to Ogilvy and then we'll come to Vodacom. Okay. But we share the same agency, Ogilvy now. A lot of what you spoke about is what I think attracted us to Ogilvy. We loved that they were digitally transformed, that, you know, it wasn't a specialist agency, it was a totally integrated agency. And, you know, we're 18 months down the line in our relationship. We have a beautiful brand campaign to show for it. What do you think creates the magic between the agency and the client?
I think it's a shared philosophy. around what difference you want to make in your customers' lives and what you want to sell. It's really it's a common philosophy around what is at the core of your business, and I think if those things are the same, then everything else is pretty easy, because anyone can create advertising or communication, but making sure that it's a complete combination between what creativity needs to look like and what you're trying to sell, and that balance, I think, is what makes the magic. And we shared that philosophy, so I think that's what it is. You should be able to just say, like, what's the philosophical makeup of a client and an agency, and work out who's going to win the pitch from the beginning.
Yeah.
The rest can be done. You know what I mean? It's like that's not where the magic happens.
No, and it is in the relationship, in the marriage, and it's how you work things through every day. Yeah. So what's life like now at Vodacom? Back to client side, and tell us a bit about some of the challenges you're facing in a marketing industry.
The reason why I moved were very clear for me. It was I wanted to work in a company that was a digital transaction business. I wanted to learn much more about the African continent and work in the continent. So my scope now also includes the rest of the 5 operations we have outside of South Africa. And also just to kind of work in a big brand again. So I'm really loving the challenge. And I think Vodacom has over time created a really engaging and emotional connection with customers, and we've done amazing work in the past, but we've lost a little bit of shine over the past 4 or 5 years, especially since the merger that we have had with the Vodafone group. And I think what happened is that we lost a little bit of the essence of what people loved about that brand at the onset. So we're working hard to bring that back in. From a macroeconomic context, I mean, we're under severe pressure. So the ICASA regulations, which are now in play, which in principle are absolutely right, that was only propagated probably about 1.5 years ago. And essentially that put a serious risk on a huge percentage of the revenue that we make. So we've got that pressure. We've got the pressure of data costs being too expensive, against the very real need of people to use the internet to advance their lives.
Absolutely.
So we are in a perfect storm where we have to build relationships, rebuild relationships with our customers and get their trust back again, and also connect them to this amazing future that they've got. So it's a really tricky space to be in, but I'm loving it, because where I am right now, I am in multiple industries. We have a video OTP service that has 800,000 viewers. We've just launched a music platform that's got 700,000 engaged listeners at the moment. We've got financial services products. We've got insurance products. We even sell funeral cover, as well as the stuff that we do on data. And then we're in IoT. We have a cloud service. We're in security. There's so many different businesses. So I tell my team all the time, this is the one place where you can be involved in many businesses simultaneously.
Amazing. Yeah. Just getting towards the end of the conversation, I mean, what advice do you have for marketers in the room in terms of their career?
I think you've really, and this is more than anything probably a cliche, that you've got to do and be engaged in something that you love. You've got to, right now, purpose is a fad for brands. Every brand wants to have some sort of purpose. But I think it's a real opportunity for us as marketers. You know, if you can have the influence to manage and divine and be part of the purpose generation of your own organization and be linked to that, I think that's got to be the kind of the key attribute that I'm looking for in any company that I work for. Is my purpose aligned to what this company's purpose is? Because the rest is just transactional. If you're able to join at that level, then you can really have passion around what it is you do and implement it in the most effective way. Our purpose at Vodacom is to connect for a better future. And I genuinely believe in the ability of that brand to connect people, communities, and governments in creating a better life for people. in the African continent, 98% of people will access the internet for the first time through their mobile. Like, that's where I want to be. That's what I want to do. And that's why I've moved, and that's why I am where I am. So if you can find that, that's a really good play. And then the transactional part of my advice to you is always work harder than you hope. I think more than ever, as marketers, we have to continue to prove our worth. And it's a great time to be in marketing because you've got so many tools at your disposal. You've got analytics that you can get on a daily basis. You've got access to insights. You've got access to so much that can help you prove that what you're doing is working or to course correct what it is you're doing. So put in the work and the rest should be able to take care of itself. So always work harder than you hope.
Amazing.
Thanks. Thank you.